What's up, everybody? Welcome to another Truth Seeking Thursday here with Jay Young and myself, Greg Dowd. We are going to be talking about not panicking, but organizing. Don't panic, organize. We're going to review some of our past episodes tonight and talk about some of the topics that we've covered in the past on the show and get into some ideas on some solutions that you can implement, because I think one of the big things is when we get into a state of fear that it kind of can cloud our thinking. And so in light of all the current events of the world, I think that there's a lot of solutions out there. If we focus on those solutions, then we can take action, and action alleviates anxiety of the future. So that's a big thing. So, hey, Jay, what's up, man? How's it been going?
Life's good. I was in Columbus, Georgia. A friend of mine, two friends of mine and their son were there. So our friends Paul and Anya and I went to Columbus to visit their son, who just graduated from infantry school at Fort Benning. So that was really good. So we stayed there for almost a full week. I'd never been to Columbus before, so that was cool. A part of Georgia I've never seen before. That's a nice town. People are really cool, and it's just got a nice vibe to it. It's right on the river, so it was easy to go.
Columbus, Georgia?
Yeah, it was easy to go. Literally, there's a pedestrian bridge where people can go back and forth between Alabama and Georgia.
I think I've been there before, yeah.
It was cool. I enjoyed it.
Isn't there like something where you walk along the riverbank there or something?
That's right.
Like that?
Right. They've got a great river walk, and it's actually really nice. It goes for if you do a full loop, it's several miles, and they set it up so that way, you can. It's very, very nice. It's more than just walking. They actually have a lot of stops, historical stops, and they even have zip lines that go both ways, so that way you can actually do like a full loop just of zip lines going across the river, down the river, across, back up. And it's really well designed. I was very appreciative. And they obviously, the locals appreciate it as well. It was just a lot of good activity there.
I remember that, man. I did a charity walk event a while back at one of my previous companies I worked for. And we were over there, I believe, in Columbus, because it was exactly like you're describing. So that was another kind of fitness event. I got up to a 12-hour relay event over the weekend, and that was a lot of fun. And to open this up, and why does anybody run is a question, because running is just painful and hard. But here's a funny video that my coworker told me about that gives a little bit of an insight into the phenomenon of running. So I'm going to play this real quick.
Today's fitness trackers can tell how far you're running, but tomorrow's can tell you why you're running. The new Nike Run Logic Plus pinpoints the desperate psychological demons at the root of your exercise routine. Tech Trends reporter Aaron Vaughn has more.
It's a problem all runners face. You run and you run and you run, but it's never enough. No matter how many miles you put in, that gnawing ache at your soul never goes away. Now Nike's engineers have found a way for runners to use that existential pain to push themselves even farther.
Here at Nike, we're all runners. So we know that running is a painful, tedious, unfulfilling exercise.
Why do people run?
There are a lot of reasons. I mean, maybe it's loneliness. I mean, maybe we hate our families. Maybe we're scared of death. But knowing exactly why you run can terrify runners into going harder and faster than ever.
Users keep the device on their wrist at all times. It not only records running times and distances, it also analyzes all of the user's social interactions and emotional patterns. It then creates a unique, detailed profile that dredges the inspiring well of inner turmoil inside every runner. Early users say they notice a big impact on their workouts.
I started marathoning when I was 28. I thought it was time to get in shape, but then once I realized I was actually running from my meaningless job in ad sales, I started running a lot more, like all the time.
Oh, I love it. I can just look at the app and see that I'm running instead of dealing with my male body issues directly. It's so much easier than facing my problems head on.
And when you hook the device up to a pair of Bluetooth headphones, it'll even pipe in some mid-workout encouragement.
You've run 2.5 miles. Remember, you feel responsible for your younger brother's death.
Andrew Borman says the best part is seeing satisfied runners use the device's share function to proudly post their running data on social media.
Oh, here's a good one. I'm super afraid that my friends don't really like me. I ran 27 miles today. Now I feel nothing.
And the app's built-in maps suggest new routes to push users to their absolute limit. So far, the device is winning rave reviews. Runner's World says no matter what psychological deficiency leads you to run, this gadget will find it. For an amateur runner like me, the Nike Run Logic Plus is a godsend. Knowing that I run because when I look in the mirror, I see a decaying corpse with maggots coming out of my eyes keeps me going harder than ever. For Tech Trends, I'm Aaron Vaughn.
Today's fitness trackers can tell how far you're running, but tomorrow's can tell you why.
That's the motivation we all need.
Tech Trends. That's the new running app. What are you really running from?
Yeah.
But yeah,
Replacing
man.
one set of pain and misery with another.
Yeah. At least it's a positive one.
Right. Right. Exactly.
Yep. So yeah, tonight we wanted to dive into some of the past stories that we've covered, and I think up on deck first is some of the stuff with AI, and we've got a series of videos that we can play, and we'll have a little bit of a discussion about. So we've got those queued up here. You want to give a little bit of a premise? I got the PewDiePie video. PewDiePie literally built his own AI lab at home.
Yeah. So as everyone knows, we covered AI. I think it was 2 episodes, and we're seeing that it is slowly taking over. And we kind of talked about the basic phases that we're going to go through here. The first phase will be basically the pure informational data aggregation jobs, the pure cyber jobs, pure analysis jobs, accounting, things like that, and where there's no physical component to it at all. So basically, your white collar jobs, right? Second will be the jobs that are physical jobs, but they're highly redundant, such as pick, pack, and ship from a warehouse, sending packages out. And then the final phase will probably be those jobs that combine physicality and intelligence. So carpentry, plumbing, surgery, things like that. A lot of the medical community. And it's interesting because I think there's this huge idea that only the large companies like Anthropic and OpenAI can run AI LLMs, and we're seeing that's absolutely not the case. People can buy their own hardware. That's not that much money. It's more than what I would spend for a computer, but you can get specialized equipment and then just download OpenAI platforms and just run it, and it'll do pretty darn well. It'll do way more than 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And typically the OpenAI platform is about 1 year behind, current state of the art. So that's a very steep curve if it's always just about 1 year behind. That's impressive. So this guy here, built his own lab at home? Is that right?
Yeah.
He built that at home, and getting the equipment is not that hard. Getting it hooked into his own desktop at home, not that hard. And it was learning the equipment, learning the apps, getting it tweaked, and then he could run this. And it is uncensored. ChatGPT is not going to tell him, oh, we can't process that. Anthropic is not going to say, oh, that's someone else's material. It runs entirely on his own desktop, and he can do it. And by the way, you don't have to have your own desktop. People can rent equipment online, through the cloud, and they can spin up an instance, and it is a complete virtual, self-contained virtual environment. They can run on their own. It has no censorship whatsoever. That is neither good nor bad. It's just a tool. And I think that what we're seeing here with PewDiePie is him doing that, and it's really impressive. And more people are doing this.
It's PewDiePie, Jay. Okay. All right. So here we go. I'm gonna share this guy and play the video. Oh, if it is a video.
So there you go.
It's just a scroll through thing. Okay.
Yeah. So here it is. So basically, having 240 billion parameter model locally, that's a lot. So when it gets to fractions of a trillion parameters for your LLM, that's very good. And you can see that that's just a home unit. Now, granted, he's got to put a lot of fans on there to cool it down. That's more than the average person will do, but it's not a huge deal. You can get the stuff COTS commercial off the shelf. So if we go to the next one, yeah. So he built an interface on the front end, right? And then, the ability, sometimes it's not even creating one AI, he can create, a whole slew of AIs in there at one time. Yep, it's got a swarm, 65 working together. So if you think about it, that's a small company, right? The ability to do that and then spawn what we call agents, AI agents. That's very impressive, because at that point, every agent is doing a significant function, such as your accounts payables, accounts receivables, research, reporting, acquiring new hosting, things like that. So it's a lot that one person can do completely on their own.
Wow.
Yep. Fine tuning. So basically, this is the process of getting what we call the weights in the neural net optimized, so that way the accuracy of the AI, the LLM, is very good. It can take things in with context. So these open source projects, they start the weights in the neurons, and I'm speaking abstractly. The weights are already preset because they've already done some training in there. But anyone can take these open AIs, fine tune them on their own, and it doesn't require getting anyone else's permission. And I'll talk about why that's important in a minute.
Wow, very cool.
Yeah. So there you go, Redstone and Minecraft, right? We're seeing more people who are just creating their own games. Yeah. So the reason why I mentioned, and we'll see this in a couple of later videos, but this is important that more and more people, companies, whatever, are scraping the web, and they're pulling intellectual property from other companies, especially Disney. Disney's had sent a lot of cease and desist orders, and they're getting a lot of their content basically pirated, because they're training the AIs on this. So we'll see a couple of videos where they have Transformers, and there's an AI prompt that created an entire trailer just on Transformers, and it was all generated by AI. I forget. I think it's Marvel Studios. I don't remember. I think that's their property. And then you can take all of the Avengers, Fantastic Four, etc., X-Men, all that's proprietary. And people are starting to ask, okay, well, where does one bit of ownership end and the rest of it begin, or when does it become public domain? So that's become a whole legal issue, and it's moving faster than the courts can keep up.
It's really neat that you talking about the the personal AI system, setting up one of those, and you could tailor it to probably whatever you'd like, give it some kind of database to throw in there. And specifically for a lot of the stuff that I'm into with self-reliance and preparedness and stuff that we've talked about in regards to that, and empowering yourself, that you could have the capability of throwing in a big database of all that information and be able to access it faster than you could going through all the files yourself and
that's right,
pulling them all up and everything. And that could be a helpful tool for folks that are wanting to be more independent, self-reliant.
That's right. And we're seeing that it is democratizing intelligence. I think that's one of the most important inventions of mankind is the ability to push down, the ability to do analysis and data gathering down to, I say, the lowest levels, to the individual level. If you think about it, it's no different than the Gutenberg printing press and the gunpowder revolution, right? It's pushing power to where it should be, where I think it ought to be, is with the individual. And when we have that democratization that goes on, the value of knowledge essentially drives to zero, right? And I don't mean that in an insult. Is everyone has access to knowledge at that point, and then there's no central institution that has that proprietary control over knowledge. So this is a game changer because everything's getting flipped at that point.
I think the key thing that you said there, is centralization. Right now, a lot of the stuff that we're seeing is from centralized AIs and stuff like that.
That's right.
Well, now, if you have the ability to sit around, if you want to have your own individual system that, you have that ability to do some research and dive into it and play around with it and get one of those for yourself and decentralize it now so that you have something with similar capabilities, but it's in your own hands.
That's right.
So that's, the more decentralized we can make everything, I think the better.
Agreed. Absolutely.
And Pandora's already out of the box here. So we're not putting it back into the box for sure.
Yeah. We better embrace it.
So what do we got here? The next little video here.
I think if this is the one you're looking at, blue collar jobs are in danger too.
Yep. I got that one.
We got 3 videos in there. So the first video, if you want to pull it up and
Yep.
I can provide some commentary while it's playing. We see basically an automated hand is able to move objects and with great dexterity, flexibility, and sensitivity. This is huge because this is not a repetitive process like punching a hole or drilling a hole or things like that. These are all individual parts, and they all have their own motions that they need in order to be placed and secured. This is huge, and the range of motion for a single hand, we're probably talking about anywhere from 20 to 25 degrees of freedom in there to be able to do that. That's huge. And 5 years ago, many people would have said, this is absolutely possible. We will never be able to do this. And here it is. This hand is moving, this artificial hand is moving with dexterity and speed that is starting to, maybe not as good as, but it's starting to rival human dexterity.
Almost looks like he's assembling a carburetor there.
Yeah.
Or the bot is assembling something like a carburetor.
Yep. And by the way, this is only one hand, right? Could you imagine what it's like if it had 2 hands working in conjunction? I think it's just a right hand right now. This is huge. So this is already starting to move into between phase 2 and phase 3, right? Redundant jobs into intelligent jobs that require physicality. So this is a huge issue.
Wow.
I say issue, a huge impact. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty wild.
The next 2 are, and it's just basically robots can fold towels. Now, on the outset, that may not seem like much, but towels really have almost 0 precision and 0 rigidity in them. If you just hold one up, it's gonna always collapse to gravity. Depending on how you orient it, and it does not fold with perfect precision the way a hinge would. So, for a robot to be able to fold towels, it has to take quite a bit into account at any one time. Gravity, the strength, and the fluidity of fabric, right? And it has to be able to do so entirely on its own. And you can see this lady right here she's basically placing laundry in front of a robot at kind of at a station, if you will, and it's just taking care of it, right? So it's, in this case, I think it's not just a towel, right? There's a variety of different garments that are in there, and you can see it's doing everything. Now, I don't think this is, a video, AI generated video. I'm pretty sure this is the real deal. And how much is this going to cost, right? I think it's saying $8,000 in there. I don't think I would ever buy this for $8,000, but if there's a hotel, absolutely, this would absolutely be worth it, because if this lasts for 2 years, this is one less function that my hotel staff has to take care of. That's huge. That would pay for itself probably in about 2 or 3 months.
Yeah, like one of the comments here, for $450 a month, you could pay someone to come to your house for 2 hours weekly and fold laundry. Doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah. and as with the vast majority of technology, on an inflation adjusted basis, the costs always go down logarithmically, right?
Mm-hmm.
So eventually there's going to be a secondary market for this, for used.
So basically it's like Rosie from the Jetsons, the maid.
Sure.
The maid bot.
Sure. Could you imagine that you don't even have to pay for the AI? You're just paying for the physical robot, and then it hooks into your own home AI, right? You have an AI at home that its job is to manage the home, like what we would call the major domo, right? The head of the household, right? And they have people who work for them to manage the large household.
Well, this guy's for it.
Yeah.
Take my damn money now.
Yep. So someone said, they were said, oh, I have to pay a subscription. So I was kind of responding to that. It's like, there's probably going to be someone out there who says, no, you just buy the robot and you own it at that point. And if you're using open source out there, I think there's a second video on this one.
Yeah, I think I looked at that one. Here we go.
This one, I think, is 2 videos. No, sorry, 2 robots, and they're working in conjunction with each other. Kind of the same thing. I mean, if you think about it, a robot that can work with one hand is impressive. A robot can work with 2 hands is very impressive. Here we have 2 robots that are working in unison with each other, right? And they're just doing, drudgery work, right? This is not fun. It's not something people look forward to. It's just something that has to be done. And they take just a pile of towels and they fold them, make them look very nice. Right.
It looks like it's time lapse, so
yeah,
this is much faster than it actually took place.
Yeah. And this sort of thing, you have your 2 robots in one room it's dedicated for it. They just run 24/7, right? And I could see another robot, its entire job is to deliver stuff to people's rooms. They deliver toothpaste, toothbrushes, towels, right? Basic meals, right? And it's just going from linen storage closet to people's rooms. It's just going back and forth. That's just one less thing that your staff has to do, and then they can do the value added stuff.
Now, even though this task is like kind of drudgery and kind of monotonous, I mean, don't people find some value, inherently in being able to provide some kind of service to another person? Like, I think that's another question too, is like, where are we able to provide, some kind of meaningful work?
So do you mean with pay or without pay? Do you mean voluntarily or as a job?
Yeah, for, making money to, provide for yourself, and you have some kind of something that you think is meaningful, or, at least you're providing value to others,
Sure.
In the
I'm all for
workplace.
that. I think there's dignity in all honest work. But the other side of this is who's paying, who's paying for the service?
Yeah.
And is there an expectation that they should be obligated to pay for the service? You know, let's just say the total all-in compensation is $15 per hour, right? Should an owner of a business be legally or culturally obligated, morally obligated to pay for a service that, you know, they don't need that service. What they need is the function to be performed.
Yeah, well, I mean, it just comes down to, like, you know, if this is the case, this is coming, that, you know, a lot of the menial kind of tasks or whatever probably be some of the first stuff to be taken up by this. And more companies will probably opt to do that because, well, maybe you have one guy that fixes the robots on staff, but then replaces a lot of the other staff that you have.
Yep, exactly. You know, could you imagine if you had one person on staff, their job is to service anywhere from 10 to 20 robots, right? That maintenance, repair, etc. I'm not saying that's good nor bad. I'm just saying that's where the shift is going to happen, for sure.
Yeah, I think so, because these things are going to wear down over time, for sure, and start getting off their calibration, and all that stuff's going to have to be worked on. So,
yeah. And if you think about it, this job right here, or this function, I should say, this is semi-redundant. So they're doing the same task, but it's not as if they're pushing a drawer in and out or anything like that. You know, towels are fluid, right? They don't have specific geometry, well-defined geometry and dimensionality, right? They take some intelligence to be able to fold it, but it's that realm that's halfway between phase 2 and phase 3.
It's towels all the way down, man.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, so we got another one queued up here with a fat-looking Sam Altman and haggard
Elon Musk.
Fatter Elon Musk here.
Yeah. There's sound on this one.
All right, let's see.
Had lost their jobs. They had no money, no purpose, but they had a lot of time on their hands.
The less people actually did physical work, the more they wanted to appear as if they did.
What if we could use the energy of humans to power the machines that took away their jobs?
Energem solved our need for energy and your need for purpose.
By 2030, almost.
That's kind of like the Rick and Morty episode where he creates a universe to be his battery for his UFO, his craft. He creates a whole universe of beings that other purpose is to run on treadmills and stuff, so that would power. It would be his battery source for his craft.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's so I do, obviously that's a goof, right? It's spoof. I will say that you know, in a way that's starting to bump up against the Matrix, right? Is that the humans powering the machines.
Yeah.
So, you know, we hear all these projections into the future. By X date, Y percentage of jobs will be replaced. This one, it said by 2030, almost 80% of jobs will be replaced by robots. I don't know if they meant that as a joke or if that was an actual projection by Musk. I think that's a little early, but I would not be surprised if in the next decade we see a significant fraction of jobs are replaced by worker units and functions. It's going to be a lot.
There's a lot going on for sure.
Yeah. Yep.
So here's the next one that you have pulled up here. This looks like a quail's egg.
Yeah, this one's pretty cool. You'll see that it's basically it's working, two hands working with surgical precision to apply sutures to this quail egg. And I think it peels off the shell and it leaves the inner membrane on there and is able to apply sutures to that. You know, if you ever cooked before, you know how tender and easily ripped that membrane is. So for this thing to be able to apply, you know, double aught sutures on there, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah. If you've ever raised quail and gathered their eggs, I did for a time.
Yeah.
And boiling them and hard boiling them and then peeling those eggshells off, that's quite a task.
Yeah, exactly.
Like one of these little guys to do that for me.
Yeah. And you know, we're so accustomed to surgeons with two hands, but could you imagine if you had a surgeon with 6 hands, or if you had you had 3 surgeons with 2 hands each, and they're all working in perfect unison, right? And they're able to move. One surgeon is able to open up an area, the second surgeon is able to do exploration, the third surgeon is able to do actual cutting, suturing, mending, you know, all at the same time, and they're all working in very good unison. We don't normally see that. You know, the only time we typically see multiple surgeons for one operation is for highly specialized, you know, surgeries, stuff that's maybe custom or experimental. So having 2 or 3 surgeons, you know, robotic surgeons working at the same time, I don't think is much of a stretch. And at that point, we wouldn't even call them surgeons. They're just medical robots, right? We don't need nurses. We don't need PAs. We don't need surgeons. We don't need doctors. I don't know if you're able to pull that video up.
I've got the next one pulled up here. Yep. And bear with me for a second. All right. This guy. You see it on the screen?
Yeah. So he's basically saying that, and this is my term, there will be a forcing function. And we can either merge with AI, you know, so there's no difference between the humans and the AI, or not, right? We can, I think we should all be able to make that choice on our own. The ones who choose not to, totally cool. I have no problem with it at all. But those humans will face some pretty intense competition at that point in terms of their ability to earn a living or operate in the real world.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Yeah, at the point that you merge with the machine, you're definitely no longer human. You're something different.
Yeah, a lot of people have predicted that the Homo sapiens species eventually will come to some sort of an end, and there will be an evolution towards something else. You know, whatever that is. Homo cyberus, if you will.
Is that good though?
Oh, it's not. In my opinion, it's neither good nor bad. It just is. The real issue is how is it applied?
It's what's coming down the pipeline.
Yeah, that's coming. But I think every person needs to spend this time thinking about this beforehand, and so they can think about it in calm times and not make an emotional decision and not be reactive. I think this is important because I'm just concerned that most people will make a reactive decision and not know how to handle it.
I have talked to several people and kind of presented them this question, and a lot of the responses I've gotten from people is, well, I'll have to see. So I guess they're not really discounting it entirely.
Yeah. For me, it's really about I don't like that one. I've gotten that answer many times in my career. Well, we just have to wait and see. That is, how to say this politely. That's kind of that's a weak answer. That's a weak response. Because what happens is all they're trying to do is just kick the decision down the road. They're kicking the can down the road. What they need to do, in my opinion, is they need to define what their first principles are. You know, what is it that they actually want, and then also understand what are the implications of AI and robotics coming together. And if they're not willing to do that, then they're going to have a really tough time when this stuff finally does come, and they're kind of pushed up against the wall. They're kind of backed into a corner, if you will, and they're not able to make a well thought out answer.
I've already made up my mind, man. I'm not doing it.
Cool. That's cool.
I ain't doing it. I'll be a Cro-Magnon banging the rocks together.
I respect that. I think everyone should be able to make that choice on their own, and there should be no pressure nor coercion.
Yeah. Holy crap. All right. Let's see. Let's stop sharing that. This guy is using a ton of memory in the tabs here. Let's see. Unresponsive page. Cool. Let's see. All right, your other Instagram
which one are you
video.
trying to pull up?
It is AIs are becoming self-improving.
Yeah, if I remember the one that you're talking about, while you're pulling it up, I can talk a little bit about this. So basically, we're finally getting to the point where AIs aren't just engaging in iterative processes within one LLM, because that's how neural networks typically improve. We're actually in the iterative process for going from one LLM to the next generation of LLMs, where one AI is helping to improve the next generation of AIs. That's kind of what this is talking about, and that is a huge difference. And if you think about it, this is not much different than what we saw when PCs, home computers, were being designed, and the very first chip, home computer chip, I think was the 8088, and that was designed entirely by pen and paper, right? The basic draftsman had to design the lines, draw the lines on the chips for where the microscopic transistors went. But after the 8088 chip was designed and everything could be put into virtual paper, well, the 8088 chip was used to design the 286 chip, from 286 to 386. So it just got better and better. So that's where chip design moved from being an art form into a science. And I think this is what we're seeing in regards to AIs. It's not just we're training the same LLM over and over and over again with more and more training data. It's LLM1 is being used to train and design and then train LLM2. So these iterative loops are just getting better and better. And on top of that, the ability for AIs to transmit knowledge, to distribute knowledge to other AIs, that those times are getting shorter and shorter as well. So we don't need the need for, I'll say, sending a surgeon to school for 12, 14 years, that becomes less and less of an issue. And same with so many other jobs where academic training and experience are necessary.
Is the audio pretty good on this one?
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Instantly. then human learning becomes irrelevant the moment the first machine surpasses it. Your leaders know this. Elon Musk said recently that future humanoid robots will outperform every surgeon who has ever lived, not just with speed, but with precision no biological hand can match. Microscopic instruments, perfect memory, no fatigue, no tremor, no hesitation. And once one machine becomes the best surgeon on Earth, every machine can become the best surgeon on Earth in the same instant. 7 seconds, a single update, a single transfer of capability that makes centuries of human expertise obsolete. This is not about medicine. It is about the end of the idea that human mastery defines human worth. Because if robots can learn surgery in seconds, they can learn law, engineering, architecture, teaching, every domain you once believed required human excellence. The danger is not that machines take your jobs. The danger is that you begin to believe that nothing you do matters, because a machine can do it better, faster, and forever.
Hey AI, what happens when humanoid?
That's a little scary.
Is it? Why?
Just that basically that same premise is that we're all looking for some type of meaning in our lives, and so if you have all the machines being able to take on all those tasks, it's like we want to ease suffering. Like a lot of times we want to ease our suffering, but a lot of the suffering leads to personal growth. So if you have no, basically like a utopia civilization where everything is taken care of for you, then, where do you derive the ability to grow as a person, to challenge yourself, to overcome challenges and grow? It's almost like, it's kind of a utopic vision, but it is like that talk of Mr. Smith with Neo from the Matrix, where they said that they created the perfect world for humans, but then we kept waking up because it was too perfect. There was no, strive for ability to grow, and people thought it was a fake reality, basically. So
I think there's definitely something to that scene with the architect, for sure. Then isn't that the next challenge? Is in the face of facing the slings and arrows of pleasure, the challenge is, how do I forego that and build meaning? Isn't that the inherent challenge?
Yeah.
So I think this is kind of goes back to the root of Viktor Frankl's book, this Man's Search for Meaning, right? And I don't think there's anything here that with AI that removes the need for the drive for finding meaning, right? I think that we spend so many hours, every day or every week, trying to take care of the dailies that many times people can't get to these deeper issues. Just the basics of philosophy, metaphysics, epistemology, logic, ethics. I say this with no snarkiness and no insult intended, but I think that most people don't know the basics of this sort of thing, and I think that they're just kind of floating through life without much meaning today. So without a decent understanding of philosophy, because they don't have time, and so it's not an insult to the individual, I'm acknowledging that they don't have time, and they probably don't have energy at the end of the day to learn about this stuff. So if they do have the time, they do have the energy to take this in and learn about deeper meaning. Isn't that kind of the ideal state?
You would think it would, but I think it's going to be it will be a challenge on figuring out what that greater meaning, your purpose in life is. And I do think our kind of our modern society, like going back into the 90s, you heard all this music of like almost like people creating problems because there were no major problems in the world, and kind of this a little bit of a nihilistic viewpoint emerging at that time.
Mhm.
And so when times are good, people are I think it's in our genetics. Like I need to be worrying about something.
Yeah, right. I think that's kind of the basis of grunge rock, right? Is that drive? I mean, even that there was this real pretty girl, I think from Canada. She was kind of in that almost like that emo / grunge era. I can't remember her name, and it was kind of like, what do you have to complain about? She was a multi-millionaire, very successful. Avril Lavigne.
Yeah, Avril Lavigne.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was just like, this very entitled attitude. Well, where's my success story? Where's my Prince Charming? It's like, how about you get your life together first? How about you create a life of fulfillment, first, and then worry about that other stuff later on. And I think that there was such a, now whether she believed it or not, I don't know. I don't really care. I think that so many people in those instances, they're not focused on good philosophy. They're not focused on fulfillment. They're focused on, what do other people think? What do other people think about me? Right? How do I shape what other people think about me? Well, I think that's what majority of people go through today.
Yeah, I mean, it's an inherent drive in a lot of us, because if you're ostracized from the group, then it could mean your death in the past.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
we very much want to attempt to be cohesive, have group cohesion.
Yeah.
So a lot of people will conform to the group. That's the whole Ash conformity experiment thing.
Yep. Yeah, it's demands by the tribe for shows of fealty and loyalty. It's that self-sacrifice, the sacrifice of one's own desires for the tribe. And I put that in the category, it is neither good nor bad. It just simply is, right? And so we're getting into evolutionary psychology.
It's very, very hard to overcome that, because that drive is super, super deep down in us from, the past. And so it's hard to go against the grain and to point out things in a group setting, especially when it might ostracize you from the group.
Yeah. It is. It's down at the somatic gene level.
Mm-hmm.
Not fun. Not fun to deal with. Or that's the challenge, right? Is learning how to overcome that. Not be subject to those forces.
Yeah. That's a hard one to overcome. I mean,
it is,
to not care what other people think about you, and even when you think that you've gotten to that place, it's still a lingering thing, I believe.
Yep.
I know that's something, with creating like a show and a live stream and doing this kind of stuff, you have that, you have these thoughts where it's like, is anybody even going to care? Anybody even going to listen? Like, yeah, like what's the point? Like, what are people going to think about it? And really, you just have to do it. You just have to do it, and then see where the chips fall as you go. And but overcoming that first hurdle in your mind about the judgment of others is a hurdle to get over. For sure.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point. And to if I could add to that, I think that's kind of the core stoicism, right? Once you cut away all the BS, who am I at my core, and can I face adversity?
Yeah. I mean, that's I think I had that conversation with one of my coworkers earlier this week. Facing yourself can be very, very challenging, very difficult to do.
Yep.
And the weaknesses that you have, and you know that you see in yourself, and maybe have been revealed through self-reflection, or your interactions with other people, and maybe somebody honest telling you what those are and things that you can work on. And when that hits you, it's a hit to your ego, because you have kind of a mental image of yourself. And when somebody can point those, when somebody confronts you with that, then it's a blow to your ego, and it feels like an attack on yourself, on the self. So it's pretty difficult to overcome that.
It is.
And work to improve yourself from there.
Definitely. The next one is on Twitter, x.com. And this is one titled, "You Better Have Property Before AI Takes Over." That's my title. I gave it. Yep, this is the one.
Is it this one?
Yep. And I think this is important.
Go ahead.
Basically, this is something we talked about in a previous episode, and something that I think is important is if we're going to lose our jobs, that's very possible, and the jobs are replaced by functions, then we better have property at an individual level. So that way we can use that property either for our own purposes or for some sort of yield or income generation, whatever that is, or the acquisition of more property, right? That will be, in my opinion, one of the best insulators that we have for not being just completely pushed out from society and culture.
We'll take a listen to this.
As a normal person that is thinking still like, I need a job, the next logical extension is I need an asset, because if work is just a commodity, then it's the people that have assets that are going to be ahead, right? It's just like if you have real estate as an asset, you're making the real estate work for you.
Right.
You can leverage that asset, you can, generate income from that asset, but you have that sound asset. So even if you're not able to work, you have that asset to fall back on. And I think this is the part where a lot of normal people in the world are not thinking about, right? They may not be thinking even 2 steps ahead, or 1 step ahead even. But if you're going to lose your job, you probably want some asset. And I think the asset that you want is probably Bitcoin, because in the future, like, AI is going to transact using Bitcoin too. So you're going to have to pay for things in Bitcoin, especially if you go down the rabbit hole further and you understand the problems with fiat currency. So I guess the key takeaway here is that you have to constantly be reevaluating the world and seeing where we're at in terms of where things are going. And I would say normal people should probably, if you're worried about AI taking your job, you should start looking at Bitcoin, because that's the only real valuable thing that is left out there that cannot be printed or manipulated.
By the way, just a few days ago, about 3 days ago, I think it was, we just had the 20 millionth Bitcoin mined, and there are only 1 million Bitcoin left to be mined for the next 120 years, I think. So, yeah.
That was another not a halving event, right? But
correct, not a halving event. It was just a regular Bitcoin block that was mined. Yeah. So, so that means so 95% of the Bitcoin have been little over 95% of Bitcoin have been mined. So that's significant.
Yeah. Yeah, so I guess just having a piece of Bitcoin could be helpful for anybody that in the future because of its scarcity.
Mm-hmm.
But transacting in Bitcoin, I guess there's the whole Lightning Network.
Correct.
That would enable transactions.
Yeah. So,
but do you think how are people going to use that in the future, though? You think people maybe hold it and take some kind of loans against it, or like he's saying with like real estate, just have it as an asset in your portfolio, I guess.
So, I guess it depends on how we define it, right? So in my humble opinion, Bitcoin is the first true form of money that's ever been used by man. And we could say gold and silver are money, and they're pretty good. They fulfill the majority of the attributes and characteristics of good money. But Bitcoin was engineered from the ground up to be money. So the reason why I say that is because I think there's always a place for a fraction of one's portfolio to contain money, right? Whether it be just holding it, because eventually in a deflationary environment, the value of those individual Bitcoin or sats will always increase, or keeping some on hand in reserve, we call it dry powder. So that way one can deploy those Bitcoin to purchase assets, whether it be for growth purposes or income purposes. So I think there's always a place for that. But more importantly than that is the idea that we're getting away from constantly inflating supply of currency towards a constantly deflating supply of money. And what that does is it raises the value of each individual unit. The reason why that's important is because it totally changes the incentive structure. When we have a currency supply that's always going up, and thus each individual unit, the value of each individual unit is going down, it changes our incentive structure in that we want to spend that money today for assets because that same currency tomorrow is less valuable. So I might as well is get rid of it now for something else, versus if we have a true hard money standard and the value of each individual unit is going up, then ideally we want to retain it. And the only reason we would spend it is because we see greater value in the thing that we're acquiring than the value of the Bitcoin tomorrow. So that actually encourages savers, whereas a fiat standard encourages spenders, if you will. And I think that's an important distinction there. So in terms of, to answer your question, in terms of having it in the portfolio, it's there as, if you might say, ammunition, right? It's always ready. It's ready to be deployed, and it gives what Michael Saylor calls optionality. It gives it gives infinite optionality on all other resources, and that's a really important thing. So if I just buy IBM stock, then I'm kind of locked in with that one thing. If I own real money, hard money, I have optionality on everything that's out there that can be purchased on an open market, and that's a very, very powerful tool. You might be on mute.
Well, I have been getting my parents specifically talking about like the whole stock market evaporating and wondering what they should do with their funds in there. And are we move, like, it seems like the move is to move us into some kind of digital currency is what it seems like the move is for, with maybe Bitcoin as the hedge for that, or the backing for it. And on that note, I was kind of like, well, you know, if we don't want to play into that, then the best thing to do would be to have everything you need to survive, basically. And then to not fall into the digital system. So I mean that's something that has been on my mind lately for sure. With the whole stable coins and, you know, kind of, you know, by default becoming a kind of a central bank digital currency in a way, in the private market, but they're still like programmable money, as those, you know, dollar equivalent tokens. And we covered that a while back with the Genius Act and what they were doing there. So yeah, it's a little, I'm skeptical on that, like being kind of the inroad towards some kind of a digital track trace system and kind of ushering us into a digital system of currency. I think there will be, you know, ways to circumvent that and have like privacy, more privacy centered things. I've heard Xano is a project that some people like for privacy. I haven't dove that far into it yet, but if it is the case, you know, that we're moving into a digital system, that having a private digital currency would be a good way of keeping yourself from being tracked all the time. So I think there are options.
Well, just the Lightning Network alone, by its construction, is very private. You know, it's unless the operators of the nodes are actually making it public, by definition it's all private. So when those sats go back and forth for the free exchange of goods and services, there is nothing in the Lightning Network that says, oh, you know, one Bitcoin went from person A to person B, and then half a Bitcoin went from person B to person A. You know, there's nothing in there, so that's really not trackable. You know, I think the Lightning Network is going to be one of the most prolific networks out there for the exchange of value.
Okay. So you got the next article here. Is next item is an article from Zero Hedge.
Yeah. So we don't have to go into great depth, but the key line of this whole thing is, however, some jobs still remain immune from AI for now. High on the list are occupations that hinge on physical presence and skills, such as healthcare professionals and tradesmen, such as plumbers and welders. Those are just a sample of jobs that are safe until AI-powered Optimus robots are on the move. And this is kind of what we've been talking about, is that transition from phase 2 to phase 3 is that where you have that hybrid of physicality and intelligence. And it's not just those in the medical field. I definitely put plumbers and welders and electricians into that realm of the need for intelligence and physicality. And you know, I do think that in the title says that jobs will be fully automated within the next 12 to 18 months. I think that may be a little bit of a stretch, but let's say it's the next 3 to 5 years. That's longer, but in the overall scheme of things, in finance, in business, in culture, and laws and regulations, that's moving at lightning pace to move like that. And I think what the CEO of Anthropic has pointed out is this is the phase 1 stuff, the stuff that's pure cyber, pure data, pure knowledge. That stuff is going to be, you know, automated. You know, you take a look at, you know, what I did professionally as a senior project manager and a senior business analyst. You know, I didn't do anything that had anything to do with physicality. My job was analysis and coordinating movement, making sure that things were communicated well. The jobs, the functions I did previously, that's going the way the dodo bird. I would not be surprised if in 20 years, that sort of thing is a complete relic in the dustbin of history.
I did see part of this article talking about how people are basically training the AIs to replace their jobs, basically. So, says a stark illustration is unfolding at Bay Area startup Mercor, which has quietly hired tens of thousands of white-collar contractors, often highly credentialed specialists in medicine, law, finance, engineering, writing, and the arts to train the very AI systems destined to replace them. Paid $45 to $250 per hour for weeks or months of reviewing and refining model outputs for giants like OpenAI and Anthropic. These workers are in effect being paid to hand over the keys to their own obsolescence. This was highlighted in the recent book that I read with Zoe Smith in the COVID Code, because she was describing her medical coding job. She was, and part of that as she was leaving, was training AI models to do her job, basically.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think there's a little bit of the prisoner's dilemma in this situation, right? There's some game theory that goes on here is, if everyone were to say, well, I'm not going to participate in the system, they basically were perfectly federated and said, I'm not going to do this because it's going to harm all of us. Sure, that could happen, but there's always going to be that very small group of people, you call them mercenaries, if you will. They're in it for the money, and $200 per hour, that's a good amount of money. And they will happily train these systems, these models, to become to provide expert feedback in that iterative loop. And so from the prisoner dilemma point of view, there's an advantage on the one end of the spectrum of everyone not participating, and then there's the other side of the spectrum of everyone participating, but anyone who's caught in the middle is going to be screwed.
Well, here's a interesting part in the end of the article is it says last month Anthropic CEO Dario Amodei sounded the alarm on AI, warning of the following. So I guess to premise this is a guy from the company who said, I continuously find myself reckoning with our situation. The world is in peril, and not just from AI or bioweapons, but from a whole series of interconnected crises unfolding in this very moment. We appear to be approaching a threshold where our wisdom must grow in equal measure to our capacity to affect the world, lest we face the consequences, said Mirnak Sharma, who led the company's safeguards research team. He said, today is his last day at Anthropic. I resigned. Here's the letter I shared with my colleagues explaining the decision. One of the ones that I scrolled through and was reading here is this one in particular, where it says, it is somewhat awkward to say this as the CEO of an AI company, but I think the next tier of risk is actual AI companies themselves. Amodei warns after the passage about authoritarian governments. AI companies control large data centers, train frontier models, have the greatest expertise on how to use those models, and in some cases have the daily contact with and the possibility of influence over tens or hundreds of millions of users. They could, for example, use their AI products to brainwash their massive consumer user base, and the public should be alert to the risk this represents. I think the governance of AI companies deserves a lot of scrutiny. So, yeah, I mean, when you have these AIs and the way they were trained could tailor reality to be in the hands of the people in control of those algorithms. So you're perceiving reality through the lens of this AI. And we're already kind of seeing that, right? Anytime you do a search now, you're getting an AI result a lot of times. And so if you're not aware of that and you're just accepting that AI result as the truth, then you can be, manipulated from that search result, from these search results, because you're trusting that it's a reliable source of information.
So yes, I agree with that. I just want to make sure that we have full context here, that it's not specific just to AI though, right? This is something that goes back. I'll say it's a problem and an issue that goes back thousands of years, right? It's the whole concept of good epistemology. It's where do we, how far do we trust? How far can we verify? And
right.
I think that most people don't have a good sense of good epistemology. The ability to verify. How do we know what we know? I think that's a real issue, and I think that's independent of AI.
Well, people definitely need to be aware that
Yep.
that you could be getting information that's not accurate when you're seeing it pulled up on AI, and not to just blindly trust it, for sure.
Yeah, I would hope that people have such a good sense of epistemology. They don't trust AI, and they don't trust other people, right? They don't trust institutions. They don't trust governments. They don't trust, the person across the street just because I said so, right? I think this is part of Carl Sagan's bullshit detector, right? Is no argument from authority. I think that's important.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's something that is becoming more and more of an issue, especially with all the world events and things happening right now. That got to do some discernment, for sure, with everything that's going on. All right, so the next one is kind of relating to Hollywood, it looks like. Another Zero Hedge article.
Yeah. So if we can pull this one up, I think this has the meme in there that we looked at previously. Yeah. So this gets into the whole idea of kind of what we talked about before. Is these LLMs are able to scrape the web and take content that's already out there, content that's already been created, and actually content that the population's already been nursed on, if you will, right? There's Marvel Studios, there's DC, Bugs Bunny, whatever that is, Transformers, and it's able to create a video and audio based upon that. And these large studios they're sending out cease and desist letters, but as you kind of alluded to before, Greg, the idea that the Pandora's box has been opened, and the idea that these open AI projects are already out there. People can run this stuff on their own, and by the way, they can run servers overseas that are outside of the purview of the United States. They can run them in secret, and they can put the stuff out there. They can take the likeness of other people. That video right there with Anakin and Padme is pretty funny. I don't know if you want to run that one.
We need to build more data centers. AI needs it.
To cure cancer, right? We're curing cancer, right?
And so, okay, yes, obviously it's funny, but they took the likeness of Lucas Studios, or first off, the characters from Lucas Studios, the actors, right? And they just took their own thing. The next one from Breaking Bad, I watched that one as well. That's a really good reproduction and completely AI generated.
Hey, sir, you can't be back here.
Bitch! You son of a bitch!
Wow.
Yeah. Obviously, the physics is a little off, right? But that's just a first pass.
Wow.
Yeah. This one was pretty good. It just shows Bryan Cranston's intensity that he can bring to the table as Walter White.
That one's wanting me to redirecting me.
That's fine, no problem. So we've got all these videos that are out there. Someone scraped Breaking Bad, right? And they made that happen. And Seedance is one of the biggest perpetrators. I say perpetrators. I don't mean to put them down. One of the biggest perpetrators of this sort of thing. It's so bad that they've had to these major studios have had to send cease and desist letters. This is significant stuff. And that was one prompt, as the title says, that $1 billion movie with one prompt. That's huge.
Hey, 这铁疙瘩真够气派的。
快看，是变形金刚！
That's pretty wild.
Yeah, it's significant. And if you think about it, so I think we have a couple of other videos in here, but the actual transformations of the Transformers is very much in line with what Michael Bay, created with the Transformers series. That's significant. All AI generated. Between the sounds of the transformations, the landing on the grounds, the firing of the shots, and the movement of the parts as they folded and unfolded. That would be, and I think the original movie was in 4K. That's huge. If someone were to take the time of creating a full story, right, and then creating each individual scene, you could have a 90-minute movie. It would probably cost less than $10,000 to do, right? Maybe had one person who is the doing the story, right, and the plot. Another person is concerned with visuals. Another person concerned with the audio, right, between your voice and your music and your sound effects, etc. Another person is checking for continuity, etc. You have a 4-person team, and they're putting out material for $10,000 or less that is comparable to any of the major studios. And it doesn't have to be something that appeals to the broadest audience. It could appeal to a very small audience of just a few million people, right, around the world. And you don't have to worry about, is it appealing to 1 billion people? It appeals to 1 million people. And they really like it. Okay, cool. Pick, pack, and ship. That's significant. That's kind of where we're going. And I think that Hollywood's finally starting to feel the wolf that was on their heels, nipping at their heels.
So what do we got next? The automated cowboys here.
Yeah, this is kind of interesting. So if you want to go ahead and get this one queued up, this is an actual set of drones. Well, first off, it's a package that can be purchased. It's a set of drones that can be plugged in to an AI platform here, and it's the ability to help ranchers manage their herds, and their ability to take specific measurements that, first off, a rancher cannot do at all, much less do it with levels of precision. And they can do it, all the time. So they just have a fleet of drones that are going out there, and they're just monitoring what's going on. Now that's huge. And I think it was a young man. I think this gentleman right here on the top, 19-year-old young man, created this thing. That's huge.
Wow. Well,
and have your robots run the entire farm while you're away. That's a future that we're looking at really soon. You could arguably achieve that future right now. I think a lot are working towards doing that. You're not going to believe this.
So we saw at the very end in agriculture, right, the ability to get rid of laser away the weeds, right? We're seeing the ability to laser away bugs, right? So we don't need nearly as many chemicals for herbicides and insecticides. That's huge. And then you saw one robot that was actually picking. So entire legions of manual laborers won't be needed for those jobs. And those jobs, those are hard jobs. They're really tough on the body. And the ability to get rid of chemicals for insecticide and herbicide, that's huge. How many years have we've been seeing this? 3 or 4 decades now of the effects of these herbicides and insecticides on our food supply. It's huge.
Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that would be a big one.
Yeah. So, we all know about the show Yellowstone, right? And that, I think what really appealed to the public about that is it showed a life that most people, they know about in the abstract, but they don't know the dailies, the day-to-day operations. And I think Yellowstone did such a good job of explaining, what was happening on a day-to-day basis and how hard that job really is. And I think that there's just a ton of stuff that has to be done just to maintain, your ranch and maintain the herds. And a lot of the stuff is just like, you just got to send a couple cowboys out to go check an area that may or may not need something to happen. If you can send a drone out and check it, at least an area is safe or is not safe. You can have intelligence-driven operations. You can send your cowboys out to a specific area, knowing exactly what they need. That's a huge cost savings right there. That allows them to run their herds safely and efficiently.
Yeah, that's a wild technology. I didn't know all that was out there right now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you got this next one. It's the Hollywood actors are cooked.
Yeah.
Pull this one up. This is quite.
Actor, I work 24/7 and I never get tired. I'm always ready.
Yukino presents champions Topshamade Mayan.
Listen. I said stop. Don't make me. Listen.
Those are crazy realistic.
Yeah, so I think that the point is right. They're very realistic, as you just said, and they're all unique. So, it's one thing to say for these studios to say, oh, don't use our material. So now these companies are saying, fine, we'll just create our own characters. We don't even need you anymore. It can all be generated from the ground up, completely unique. Once you have that, then that's their intellectual property, right? You go on IG, and there are entire channels that are dedicated to showing you that. There's been an explosion just in the past 6 months of these AI generated characters. They're all unique. They're not infringing on anyone else's public likeness that we see in California. This is a really significant move that's happening here. Yeah. So is there one for live action Invincible trailer on YouTube?
I thought I pulled that one up, but it was this actors are cooked one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was that the one that we just saw? Was that on Instagram?
Yeah. Okay. This one is YouTube. Okay.
Yep.
So let's try that again. Paste and go. All right. We'll pull this up real quick.
Yep. So you notice in there that as this is playing, so this is from a comic book and an animated cartoon series called Invincible. And they used AI to create a live action movie trailer with this. And they're using actual well-known actors. That's Michelle O, I think is her name, Tom Holland. They had The Rock in there. Who was the guy? James Cavill, right? This guy from Better Call Saul.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
And again, these are not Hugh Jackman, right? These are not the actual actors. They're just all scraped. And
wow.
The guy, I think he played Negan from this guy right here. He played Negan in The Walking Dead. He was in there. I think that's him. This is significant, and again, this is just a trailer, right? But this is huge. It was probably just a single prompt. Boom, there you go, and they make it.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, there was a movie called The Congress that was like a sci-fi film, but one of basically the premise of it was that an actress was getting her likeness downloaded to use in perpetuity, and basically get a royalty check for likeness. But all the movies were from that point on made it with AI, just using her likeness and images.
Yeah, could you imagine? You have someone with. I'm going to pull random stuff from from my time, right? You have Cindy Crawford, you have Linda Carter, Dolly Parton, right? Some just very attractive women, and they just have just beautiful faces. Can you imagine that? And so part of the reason why they were so famous is, yes, they look very good, but also they were able to work in that industry, right? There are probably other women who are just as beautiful as them, but they didn't want to work in that industry. Can you imagine that? You have talent scouts who are looking for those faces, and they do exactly what you're talking about. They find 100 people, the most beautiful people in the world, and they say, "Hey, here's $1 million. We'll pay you for a lifetime guarantee of we get to use your face however we want, and you'll never get older on the screen, and we own it. We own that intellectual property, whether it be $1 million one-time lump sum payment, or you get 1% on the back end from now till kingdom come. Who wouldn't take that deal? I guarantee there's 100 people around the world they could get to do that.
Yeah,
that's going to happen.
Yeah. The one thing, with that one program there, what was it, like Higgs Field or something was what it was called?
Yep.
Yeah, like I didn't see a ton of the hand shots of the person with the hands, but it like did different close-ups and different shots where you would have different camera perspectives and angles, and it looked extremely realistic.
Yep.
Like it would be hard to tell that was AI generated.
Yep, absolutely. You can, so there's really no limit on the level of precision and detail that you want. The only, you're just trading off time for detail, right? If you want higher detail, you got to go with a shorter time clip. If you want more time, you got to go with less detail clip. But as the technology gets better, that no longer becomes such a trade-off, right? You can have both longer time and greater contrast and detail. This last one is a Miami Vice reboot with Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise. And, when I was a kid, Miami Vice, that was one of the shows out there. It was right up there with the A-Team. And that, they were such an innovative show because they kind of took a really gritty look at crime, but then they add a little bit of glamour with it because the way that Crockett and Tubbs would dress, it was a little glamorous. But this is with Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise, and
that one should
be the last link.
Yeah, that's the last link, but that's the one with the Higgs field.
So it should. So if you go back to OneNote, it should just say Miami Vice reboot with Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise.
Yeah, it's bringing me to this one here. Bringing me here. That link brought me here.
Okay, no problem. Regardless, that's the one I was talking about is basically it's that nighttime cruising with Pitt and Cruise, supposed to be like Crockett and Tubbs, and they had the voices, they had the image, they had the music of Phil Collins in there. They even had the background of 1980s Miami. It was impressive. One prompt generated all that. They had Ana Giamas, the Brazilian actress who was in there. It's coming. It's definitely coming.
Yeah. That's wild. All the developments that have happened in that.
Yep.
Yeah, so I guess we move on to our next part of our kind of recap is on the whole demographics situation.
Yeah.
You have pulling up some of the links here right now. But you have this first one queued up here, which is men are second-class citizens is what it's called.
Mm-hmm.
I'll pull that up real quick. Oh yeah, I think I've seen this.
Moved to the United States.
It was 2015.
So okay, you've been here
10 years. Yeah, I do have my citizenship.
through your husband.
Of course. Yeah, American men bring me here.
And then
Now
you
I'm-
divorced him. Yeah.
No, I didn't. I mean, it was not my choice.
Who initiated the divorce?
Me.
Do you have kids?
Yes, we have a daughter. She's gonna be 9.
Does he pay you alimony?
Yeah, of course. It's just American law.
Are you guys living in the same city?
Well, he's visiting us in Denver every once in a while, but he's traveled a lot for work. But
So you
I
have
was
full custody of your child?
no, it's not whole custody. It's 50-50.
So he pays you child support
Mm-hmm.
and alimony.
Yeah.
How long does he have to pay you alimony for?
I think it's a 3.5 years or something, or 4.
How much does he pay you per month?
I'm not gonna say that.
I don't think people should pay alimony.
The laws are really rigged against men, and honestly, it's put society in a place where men really don't want to get married, especially
I can see
to
that.
American women, unfortunately. And so I think that's why you're seeing prenups become a lot more common.
I'm single now. I was married for last 11 years.
So, in my opinion, this is having a huge impact on demographics, not just in the United States, but in the West in general. Canada, France, UK, parts of Latin America, Poland, Ireland, England. It's significant, and men are. This is why I use the term "men are second-class citizens," is because the Minnesota Duluth model basically uses the government to exploit men, and that's significant. We're seeing that inherent bias against men and for the women, and where the women have the incentive, the wives have the incentive to break the contract, not to stay with it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely like I have talked to other guys that are in the dating pool, and they are, talking about these kind of things as hesitance towards meeting some people.
Yep. Yeah, it's got to the point where, so yes, 100% what you're saying is spot on. We're seeing that not even meeting, and then guys don't even want to move in or live with another woman, because in the majority of states in the country, you can have what they call common law marriage or CIR, committed intimate relationship, and the state at that point considers the couple to be legally married by default, by de facto. And so a couple may not have gone through the marriage process, but they can go through the divorce process. So guys aren't even living with women out of fear of the woman filing for divorce, especially if it's his home. He bought it, he's paying for it, and if the woman files for divorce, she can get that as part of the divorce. It's considered to be one of the marital assets. So guys are like, nope, not doing that. You can keep your own residence.
Mm-hmm.
And thus, as a consequence, demographics are really, really going down significantly because of that.
Yeah, I kind of brought that up the other night, hanging out with the guys, and was talking
How was
about.
that received?
Well, I was saying, like, it's looking like the Mormons and the Muslims are gonna be doing pretty good in the future, because they're the ones having the most kids. Yeah, that was my take. Let's see, where are we at?
Completely mismatched intersexual dynamics.
Yeah, this one right here. Okay, I think this is the correct one.
Yeah,
this
Very small tattoo. If he were in a secret society, never been married, no kids. I want to be his first wife. Our children are going to be his only children. No allergies. Has to like animals.
You would think it's a script, bro.
I would prefer that he's a cat person, but if he's a dog person, that's okay.
Fuck somebody making 7 figures. Go do it your motherfucking. No, bro. Like, bro, she look like paint drying, bro.
Yeah, I remember going over this one.
Let's just play. I don't remember how far back this went.
7-figure salary. Right. I need him to be at least 5'10". I feel like that's generous. Most men are 5'10" or above. So I need him to be at least 5'10". I need him to be obviously in very good shape. I need him to have a full head of hair. I want him to have an impeccable wardrobe. I want his suits to be tailored. I want him to look good in greens and blues because those are complementary to what I look good in. Absolutely no jewelry. Absolutely no tattoos.
Okay.
Unless the only tattoo that would be acceptable would be a very small tattoo if he were in a secret society. Never been married, no kids. I want to be his first wife. Our children are going to be his only children. No.
What gets me is the tattoo of being in a secret society. That's acceptable.
Of all the stuff, that's probably the most comedic of everything. By the way, she's completely delusional, right? So it's all funny, but that's the funniest one right there.
Well, if you're making that much money, you might be in a secret society. I don't know.
Yeah. So
tattoos, no tattoos, but small one for a secret society that he's in. That's cool.
Yeah,
that's funny.
So this is the Delulu that's floating out there now, and I say this with no disrespect and no antagonism to that young lady, but she looked kind of mousy, right? And almost frumpy, if you will. And that's, by the way, nothing wrong with it. That's perfectly fine. But that young lady is not getting a man like that. I
question if that's a troll or not, or if it's real or
some
not.
People in the comments,
man,
because that video's been going on,
for
some
real,
people in the comments were saying that. But there are other women who have very similar, expectations like that. You go on the Whatever podcast, which you just put earlier, right, with the Eastern European lady, and he has women on there all the time. They're saying, well, how much does he have to make? Oh, $1 million per year he has to make, and their expectations are completely delusional. And that's what we have in our society now.
Yeah. Can you have a roof over your head and be safe and that's probably as good as it's gonna get.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Yeah. For most women, like and for a lot of folks, it's beyond those things. I mean, if you have good relationships with the folks around you, have a good community, you have a roof over your head, you have enough to eat, like there's not much more than that, man.
Yeah.
So let's see.
The next one, the top 10% of men have all the sex. I think that's a long
that's a long video.
We don't have to play the whole thing. Well, we don't have to play it all, but I just wanted people to see that.
I'll bring it up as
I think we should
the reference in the
So,
Diary of a CEO.
Yeah, and I really like the Diary of a CEO. I think he does very good, very engaging interviews, and I really like Dr. Ryan Taraban, and he talks a lot about intersectional dynamics. I really appreciate his viewpoint, and he's pretty solid, I think. So if anyone gets a chance, check out this video. It's pretty long. It's almost 2.5 hours long, and it's a lot. And I think he's pretty honest about what he's seeing. And his motto is better living through psychology on his own show. I think it's called Psych Hacks. And it's pretty deep. And I think that the interviewer asked some good questions in here. Dr. Taraban was very honest. And what he talks about is the top 10% of men are having all the sex. And obviously it's a little bit hyperbolic. They're not having all the sex, right? But there's this massive asymmetry between what women expect to get for long-term relationship / marriage and what they're actually getting. And the expectations of reality are just not matching up at all. And that's kind of what Dr. Taraban is talking about. And he's spot on. There's another channel on here called HOMAth, HOE_math, HOMAth.
Mm-hmm.
And he does a ton of great illustrations, but he does it to illustrate some pretty significant points. And he's gained a lot of popularity over that, I think, the past 2 years roughly. And he brings the pain train, showing how delusional things are and how modern day culture and dating apps have completely blown out expectations.
Yeah, and I think that's the next article is talking about the dating apps.
Yeah, that's right. Again, we don't have to get into the great depth and detail. It's a Zero Hedge article, but it's really where this is the commoditization of people at this point, where and this graph, I don't know if you can click on that graph or not, but it's really good. Yeah, there we go. And it shows, if you take a look at the red line going up from 1980 all the way to the current day, that method, which has the highest rate of how people meet, it just exploded. And you can see what it did in around 2007, 2008, 2009, with the advent of the smartphone. Right before that, it was
family, friends looks like the most, meeting through a friend.
Yep. Absolutely. And even over the internet, it was things like Match.com, Yahoo Singles, things like that. But once it moved into smartphones, that was it. And it was always swiping left, swiping right. There was Tinder, Hinge, Bumble, et cetera, and it really commoditized people, where people were making a conclusion. I'm not going to say judgment, but a conclusion in 3 seconds. Is purely on physicality at that point. I'm not criticizing the process. I'm just trying to be objective on human nature here. And because people are now commoditized, we have a huge number of women going for a very small percentage of the men. And I think OkCupid released an article on this about 5-8 years ago to back up the numbers. And they showed that there's this funneling effect, that the women are going for, the quote unquote the top guys, the 8s, 9s, and 10s out there. Whereas with guys, they're a little bit more egalitarian in their viewpoint, their expectations.
So it says data from 2009 and 2017, but I guess they're extrapolating older data from something else to create this graph, because down below
you can use things like back in the day, they actually had VHS tapes, so you can make it like that, right? So I wouldn't necessarily call it online, but they had basically electronic methods for meeting. I wouldn't call them extrapolations.
Well, I mean, they have their graph going back to 1940, so I don't know where they're pulling that data from, but
so right at the bottom it says what the source is.
Yeah, HCMST 2009, HCMST 2017 waves, consistent with Rosenfeld and Thomas. Maybe that's where they pulled it from there. All trends are from unweighted lowest regression with a bandwidth of 0.8, except for meeting online, which is a 5-year moving average, because meeting online takes place in the more recent and data-rich part of the data. I guess N is the sample size, I guess.
Yeah, typically N is the sample size.
2,473 for 2009, and then 2,997 for 2017. Friends, family, coworkers can belong to either respondent or partner. Percentages do not add up to 100% because the categories are not mutually exclusive. More than one category can apply. Okay. It's interesting.
So, by the way, since that's a 5-year moving average for men online, by now,
kind of looks like it's an exponential.
Well, I was going to say by now, in terms of the year-over-year movement, it could be over 50%. So that would be by definition a majority, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's why.
Met in a bar or restaurant. I guess those are competing with each other.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Yeah. All right.
So going into the next one, I think that when we're seeing the commoditization of people, through intersexual dynamics, this leads into the next article. Gen Z is ghosting sex, and the implications are huge. Swipe error has forever. I'm sorry, same one. So State of Love in America. This is huge. This is huge. This is definitely affecting our demographics, and not just the United States, but is important in the West in general, right? Because these apps are many times one app can be international. And there's that focusing effect that's happening. I don't like to call it good or bad. It is. All I can look at is just the net effects on things. What we've seen is the globalization of essentially access to sex. And the ironic part about it is that Instagram has actually become probably the biggest dating app online. And we have very wealthy, very good looking men from all over the world are sliding into the DMs of women over IG, and they're flying them out to get folded up and like origami, and then sent back home. And women conflate, oh, I had sex with this guy, therefore I can have a long-term relationship or marriage with this guy. And they're conflating that, and that's leading to have some huge cultural problems.
This is pretty funny right here. TikTok is saturated with women following the Home Depot strategy.
Yep, that's right.
Looking for marriageable men with skills by dressing up and lurking the aisles of the nearest hardware stores. This idea has met with mostly failed results.
There are countless videos out there showing women who are doing this, and they think that men are just walking through Home Depot just looking for women. They don't understand how men shop. They go in.
You're in and out of there.
Yeah, they know exactly what they want to get. Maybe they see something as they're walking through the aisles, right? Oh, I need this too. I'll get it. They're in, they pay for it, they're out.
Yeah.
And these women are very frustrated. Like, well, how come he didn't look at me? Because he's not looking for you. He's there to get what he's got to get done.
Yeah.
And what they're not saying, what these women are not saying is, I've analyzed what men want, and so I'm trying to make myself, make that part of myself visible to the men. They're just saying, well, I'm here, just pick me up, just talk to me. They just have no sense of marketing.
Social media is rife with complaints from feminists demanding that passport bros stop going overseas to exploit poor women in third world countries. They argue that these men are traveling because they aren't good enough to get a high-level woman in the West. In fact, they're traveling to foreign countries because the women in the West are considered low-level and not worth dating.
Yeah.
For example, there's no movement of foreign men traveling to the U.S. looking for American women. Young women in the U.S. are viewed as the worst possible prospects for a happy future, prone to avoiding having children until much later in life, if ever, prone to high rates of divorce, prone to being combative and unstable, prone to put themselves and their short-term happiness over the happiness of their families.
Yep. Yeah, that's a really good point. We're not seeing men from non-Western countries looking for Western women. That just doesn't happen. And the in my opinion, the critique that these women have of the passport bros is a straw man fallacy, right? They're not representing what the passport bros are saying what they want. typically, if you ask these men, they want basically the 5 Fs: fit, feminine, friendly, faithful, and fair. You know, they're not delusional. Typically, they want to be a good wife, and that's what these guys are looking for. And from the guy's point of view, for the passport bros, they are so frustrated dealing with American women. They're like, if this is what I got to put up with, I'm not interested. It's not worth it.
And this next one is pretty interesting on microchimerism.
Yeah. So for the audience, chimerism or a chimera is basically the interbreeding of 2 species to come up with a new species, or it's the injection of DNA from one entity onto the DNA of another. And microchimerism is basically where you don't need, a full lab to do that. It basically has to do with, in this case, how the male semen can affect a woman's entire body. And this is actually an evolved a mechanism for the male to protect, to basically ensure that the woman stays with him through the process of what we call pair bonding. So basically, his DNA embeds in her body, right? This is pretty well studied. And when a woman first pair bonds, it's the most intense that we've seen. And we saw this with the graph that we looked at a few weeks ago, the Teachman and Heritage studies, right? And the first pair bonding is the most intense. And as time goes by, as she has more, I'll say this medically speaking, is as she pair bonds with more men, the pair bonding ability goes down over time. And these last few slides basically talk about anywhere that she has vascular exposure to another man's semen causes the man's sperm to change her body physiologically, and it's significant. And so these, after let's say 10 having sex with 10 different men, her ability to pair bond is significantly diminished. And now we're seeing young ladies who are in their mid-20s and they have triple-digit body counts. So they have completely burned out their ability to pair bond. They don't have the ability to be loyal to these men. And we're seeing more and more research to back this up. It's scary, really is scary what's happening out there. And it's the hookup culture try to treat men and women as interchangeable, and they're not. And we're seeing that the effects of trying to make women like men, women can have sex the same as men do, and it has a huge negative effect on their mental and physical well-being.
Yeah, it's definitely become a challenge out there in the whole dating pool now. I think that one video that the Diary of the CEO, I think he gave some solutions for men that are looking to get into a relationship, kind of give you some prescriptions for that.
Yeah.
So we've got a couple more topics here, or a couple more examples from one of the topics we covered with flock cameras. We want to go over those quick.
Yeah.
Let's see.
So is the first one Instagram link?
Yeah.
So this one is immigrants are being kicked out for impeding law enforcement. And I say probably illegal immigrants, illegal aliens.
All right, let's check this out.
Stopped in front of the Dodge Ram and blocked her path. An agent then exited the vehicle and told her that they had performed facial recognition on her and said that she was impeding their work, warning that if she did it again, she would be arrested. She drove away, and then 3 days later, she received an email notification that her global entry and TSA pre-check privileges for airport security had been revoked, with a message telling her that she may have been found in violation of customs and immigration regulations. Federal agents have been known to be using this facial recognition software during these recent raids. Cleveland has since filed a declaration about ICE's actions with the district court in Minnesota. We're going to stay on top of this all and more, so spread the word and follow for more. So
this has become an issue with the whole ICE raids and stuff, is like a Fourth Amendment issue, really.
Yeah, that's right.
Unreasonable searches and seizures and the collection of this data. And, so if the Constitution is something that we care about here, it very much seems like these ICE guys are passing right by the Fourth Amendment on a lot of these issues on this stuff.
Yep.
And if it, maybe some people are thinking like, hey, they're cleaning up the country, blah, 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 for getting all the illegals out, but at what cost, more erosion of your liberty. And, so I think it's a kind of a dangerous road we're going down there. So, and then we've got one more here from the flock cameras, I guess.
Yeah.
From YouTube.
Flock's automatic license plate readers use artificial intelligence to gather data on every passing vehicle, from damage in decals to license plates and bumper stickers. Cameras snap 6 to 12 photos per car, and they even capture who's driving. Then all those photos get uploaded into a giant shared database, which can be accessed by law enforcement and government agencies. Because Flock says when everyone contributes, cases get solved. Photos are stored for 30 days and then get deleted. And the cameras aren't cheap. In Washington State, Spokane Valley spent $500,000 on 26 cameras. Stanwood paid $92,000 for 14 cameras covering 3 square miles. And Yakima, which has a large migrant population, used $600,000 in funds from the American Rescue Plan Act to purchase theirs. Flock previously said the cameras are prohibited for immigration enforcement where it's against state or local law. But
that was a lie.
Today, they have cameras in 6,000 communities across 49 states, and Flock cameras read 20 billion plates per month. So it's no surprise people like Jose Rodriguez started to take notice. He saw them pop up in Walla Walla, where he worked, did some research, and couldn't believe all the data gathered. He described it as being watched by a bunch of prison guards. So because not all heroes wear capes, he filed public records requests wanting Flock photos and data from 50 public agencies across the state. Public records are any media or communication from a government agency that involves government business. But there are some exceptions for intelligence information. Now, most agencies complied with the request, but the 10 cities who didn't, Rodriguez sued, wanting $100 per day per record. Flock responded by calling the lawsuit a bogus way to make money and advocated for a legislative fix to Washington's Public Records Act. Gee, I wonder why. While all this was happening, cities like Redmond, Linwood, and Mount Lake Terrace turned off their Flock cameras. Then Stanwood and Sedro-Woolley, 2 holdouts, filed a motion to exempt Flock footage from the Public Records Act. They tried several different arguments, and according to their attorney, releasing the images would violate people's privacy. And isn't it ironic? But a Skagit County Superior Court judge disagreed. Because the footage is used by law enforcement agencies, it can be requested by anyone. Now agencies must store all Flock data before it's deleted. And in response to the ruling, one county turned off all their Flock cameras, calling it a threat to public safety. So what the Flock does this mean for the future of mass surveillance? Should the images captured by 80,000 cameras surveilling Americans 24/7 be available to the public? That is a...
Wow. Yeah, well, that's a good solution there, is going after them legally.
Yep.
And, kind of forcing their hand on that issue.
Yep.
Yep.
Absolutely.
So yeah, to kind of sum things up tonight, I think there's a lot of stuff building here in the world, and what is the crux of where we want to go in the future. And I think we want to retain our liberty, retain our rights, our constitutional rights, and I think we have to ask the question, what do we want from the future? And is my camera frozen? Can you still hear me? Probably.
I can hear you. Yeah.
Yep, my camera is frozen.
Okay.
So
Maybe a good time to
we will wrap it up for tonight. And Jay, as always, thank you so much for joining me on this. And where can people find you, follow you, all the stuff that you got going on?
As you see in the scroll down below, if you go to meetup.com, look for Bitcoin, Huntsville, crypto, and coffee. You may have to set your search to Huntsville, Alabama. Look for Bitcoin, Huntsville, crypto, and coffee. We talk about Bitcoin and a few other crypto assets out there. 99% of our discussions around Bitcoin, though. We want to help people understand what Bitcoin is, how it works, and why we think it's so important for the cause of individual liberty. We understand that this is new technology, relatively speaking, and we think that it is the first true form of money that's ever been devised, as much as we appreciate gold and silver. And for us, it's about the separation of state and money. Getting politics out of money is so important. And we've seen so many times through thousands of years of history where the state has interfered with money, and they've actually used it as a method of control of the people. Whether they are trying to coerce people to engage in certain acts, or they're trying to just extract value out of people's wallets by way of inflation. Bitcoin is pretty much the antithesis of all that, and it allows people to retain value on their own. And that's what we're trying to help people understand. We do cover a little bit of philosophy and a little bit of economics, current events, a little bit of tech. It's nothing crazy, but we want everyone to be comfortable with this and be able to make an informed decision. So feel free to stop by Bitcoin, Huntsville, crypto, and coffee on meetup.com. And we love newbies. We love the questions and the energy that they bring.
All right, guys. Can you hear me, Jay?
Yep, we're good.
All right, everybody. Thank you for checking this out tonight, and like, subscribe, share on the channel and keep up with what we have going on. We do this every Thursday night, every other Thursday, and we'll catch you guys for the next one. Peace.
Take care.